getting harassed by my peers. No, I'm good, thanks. I have a what? Thank you. He's got to get a coffee. Come back. Get a coffee. 5 minutes. Yeah, go get a coffee. For your reading pleasure. All right, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December the 3rd. Mr. Clerk, the time is now 7:06 p.m. on Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2019. I'd like to call this General Committee meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda, including additional items that have been circulated? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Okay, seeing none. Community presentations, we don't have any this evening, but we do have 2 delegations. The first delegation we have is Miss Juliana Culia. I'm sorry. And Trina Willert, residents regarding sidewalk of Kitimat Crescent. If you want to come to the podium, and I'm sorry if you want to pronounce your name again. And address, you have 5 minutes for your delegation, and at the 1 minute mark, you'll hear a little signal giving you a bit of a warning. They're down to a minute. Oh, okay, no problem. Sorry, just a second, adjust the microphone. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
So I'm basically here on behalf of the residents of Kitimat Crescent to oppose this sidewalk that has been approved. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for safety for everybody, children, parents, the residents on our street, but I feel that we all feel that the sidewalk is not going to be safer for anybody. It's going to cause more problems. The school has a parking issue, and they use the end of our street as a parking lot. They park on both sides of the street, they drive fast, they don't care about where they stop to drop their kids off. A sidewalk is they're still going to do that, and now there's a sidewalk where parents are going to open their car doors, people are going to be walking. The snow plow, we're like the last street to be plowed. We're a secondary street, we're not a school zone. Bylaw tells us all the time we're not a priority, and now we have a sidewalk that we're going to have to also clean. It's been said that the town cleans the sidewalk, but our street is barely plowed. And another thing is that by putting in this sidewalk, you're going to eliminate a lot of people with their second parking spots. Some have third parking spots that they've already made their lawn into another parking spot. Those cars are now going to be parked all over the road. Despite of what you may heard with foot traffic, the only foot traffic that happens on our street are the parents and the students. Our street is dead. I ask you to do a road study to just come see for yourself. There's nobody on our road. The kids play ball hockey, they ride their bikes, we all sit at the end of our driveway watching them. There's no cars. The sidewalk is not going to encourage pedestrians to walk on our street because no one's going to walk up Tecumseh, cross the street, walk on Kitimat to end up at Tecumseh to have to cross the street again on a sidewalk. They're just going to walk on Tecumseh. And nobody consulted the residences. This has been dismissed so many times, and the residents feel that we're not being listened to. A petition of parents they were signed at the front of the school by people who don't even live on our street. It's 20 minutes twice a day, and then the street is done. And I'm asking you to do a study, come see for yourself before you implement this sidewalk that's just gonna cause aggravation. Another thing, it's a curb sidewalk. It's not even a full sidewalk. Jane at the end of our street has a walker. A sidewalk is going to curve towards the road. She's not going to be able to use it. There's other people there that the sidewalk is just going to eliminate their parking, as I've said. The snow is another issue. The plow's going to come by. Where's the snow going to be piled? On the new sidewalk, which now has to be cleaned. The plow leaves a ton of snow at the end of our driveways, which we clean. Is it the town's responsibility? Is it our responsibility? There's a lot of elderly people on our street too. My husband snow plows their driveways because they can't do it, and now there's a sidewalk. If that's not plowed in time, someone slips, Are we liable? Is the town liable? I'm just asking you to reconsider. 7 streets near Murray Drive, you guys voted not to construct sidewalks, citing challenges with winter maintenance and loss of driveway parking, trees, greenery. Why is our street being treated differently than those streets? They look the same, detached, semi-detached homes, small driveways, they look the same. Why were those streets not approved? But why is our street different? The school has a parking issue, it's a separate issue from the street, and we don't feel that a sidewalk's going to fix that. Parents are still going to drive crazy. They're still going to park on both sides of the road. They open their doors, they don't care, they pull out their strollers on the road. Like I witnessed it yesterday. So I'm just asking you to do a study, reconsider, because all you're gonna do now is make it less safe for the people who actually live on the street versus those 20 minutes a day for the parents and the students. Maybe make an inlay where the buses can park in front of the school and the parents can use the roundabout in the back like they do at Our Lady of Grace, St. Joe's, all those schools. There needs to be another solution, and we all don't feel that this sidewalk is going to solve anything. So I'm asking you to do a road study, reconsider, look at all the options and all the consequences before you go ahead and put this sidewalk in. Please, thank you.
Great, thank you. No, don't go. Stay there.
Sorry, never done this before.
No, you did great. Thank you very much. I know it's not easy to be up there speaking to us, so thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Don't go anywhere. Before I move, may I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegate? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson. Are there any comments or questions of the delegate this evening? Okay, seeing none, I just wanted to make a comment that staff is putting together a working group to look at all the issues. I know the sidewalk was passed last meeting, but they're going to look at exactly what you talked about, what different opportunities are to make it more safe for the school to be able to have, like what you just mentioned, maybe buses at the front. So that's happening. We're going to get a report soon enough on that. But other than that, thank you so much for your coming forward this evening. All right, all in favor? Receiving the delegation? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We have a second delegation this evening. Aaron Gillard from Larkins Plus Land Use Planners, representing owners from 180 to 182 Center Street regarding item R4, PDS 19-069, Regional MCR update, Aurora Employment Land Conversion Requests. If you would mind, please stating your name, and be reminded that you have 5 minutes as well, and you'll have a minute at the warning mark.
My name is Aaron Gillard on behalf of Larkin Land Use Planners. I represent Luba, Lynn, and Nick Ciperni, as well as Lillian and Arthur Menzies, owners of 180 to 182 Center Crescent. We're here in support of the staff recommendation with regard to the employment conversion, and I just wanted to touch base on my client's lands here to take up less than a couple minutes of your time on that point. As you can see here, the lands are located just north of Wellington Street to the west of Industrial Parkway. The lands themselves in total comprise less than 2 acres, approximately 1.8 acres in size. The area is a mix of employment as well as non-employment uses, mixed-use uses, and so forth. The property is located within a 5-minute walk, which we'll get into in just a second, to the Aurora GO station, which is one of the prominent reasons as to why we're recommending or supporting staff's position to have the region reconsider their position. The request, as I mentioned, is to have a redesignation from the existing industrial employment to more of a promenade general, which would come about in the future should we be successful with the region. In our planning analysis that we submitted to the town, we did find that in support of the conversion, that it did meet all of the criteria under provincial plans, York Region official plan, the growth plan, as well as the town official plan in terms of planning policy. The main reason for the conversion is that the lands are within a major transit station area. They are within 500 meters of the GO train station. And in this area, policy typically dictates that these areas would be improved for intensification to approximately 150 persons and or jobs per hectare. Currently, so here's the map that you see. My client's lands are shown in yellow. Currently, the York Region has provided that this area currently has 80% employment and 20% persons. They're looking to have this area flipped so that it's 70% persons and 20% employment in the future, which means that there's an opportunity for infill. And currently the lands are, there's only one single detached house per property, which is a viable reuse of those lands. And that's why we're here endorsing the conversion. As I mentioned in our analysis, we found that there was support at all levels of planning policy. The lands are in an ideal location for intensification. The idea being that it would be mixed use, and there would also be a component of commercial on the ground floor and or office on the second floor. There is no development plans in place now. The lands would become for sale in the future to a developer that may wish to develop them, but they are in a suitable location within a 500-meter distance to the GO train station. In terms of the criteria, we found that there is a need for the conversion on the basis that it's currently underutilized, and it had previously, the lands had been residential since the advent of the employment area, and they had never been used for employment. The lands are not required over the long term for employment uses. There's sufficient employment land within the other areas of the town in order to have employment uses. The overall viability the employment area on Industrial Parkway will not deteriorate. Minimum intensification targets within the town's official plan will also be maintained, and the use is compatible with the other uses in the area. One of the last points I just want to make is that this site does meet the intent of the town of Aurora's official plan. I won't get into too many details on that, except to say that we did find that it did meet that town of Aurora policy. And to conclude, the proposed conversion will recognize the long-term use of the properties as low density, meaning they're unutilized, which predates the current employment designation. The properties are located within the defined walking distance of the GO train station, conforms and supports policies at all tiers, and represents general good land use planning policy. And that is it.
Great, thank you very much. May I have someone motion to receive the delegation? Councillor Gilliland, Mayor Marakis, any comments or questions of the delegate? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just to confirm, ultimately, it's not the town of Aurora's decision whether these are converted or not.
This is the decision is ultimately done through a municipal comprehensive review, which can only be done by the region. And so what would happen is that the town is going to direct the region to reconsider their phase 1 decision that basically said that they felt that the land should be converted. And so just to continue with that through the chair, so what we've done is we've made representation with David, and we are also going to pursue this matter should the committee decide to endorse the recommendation that's in the report to try and have the lands converted.
And that review, through you, Madam Chair, that the region is doing is not complete yet.
It is not. No.
Thank you.
They're currently they will be starting the phase 2 portion of the review.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. All in favor of the delegation? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the item of the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? C1, moved by Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Advisory committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to receive the advisory committee meeting minutes A1 to A2? Moved by, sure, Councillor Gilliland.
Hello. Just a quick comment. I just want to bring it back attention to the accessibility committee meeting that we had on page 5. And it's a new project, and I've talked about it before, and how the town of Aurora is the first municipality to engage in these sensory rooms. So we had a chance to talk about it within the community accessibility advisory, which was received very positively, and we're really excited about it. And just one of the comments that were made was further suggestions regarding options and resources for equipment and activities to be included, and inquired about the possibility of seeking donations for a sensory room. So although we've kind of accumulated our own list, and staff is on this, I just thought I'd kind of throw out there to the public as well that, you know, if there is interest in donations out there, to please contact us at the town, and we'd be happy to work with you. And thank you to Matt Zawanda for all his hard work on the plan as well.
Great,
Thanks.
awesome. Thank you very much. It's great. All right. Okay, may I have someone move items A1 to A2? Councillor Gilliland, Mayor Marakis, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, consideration of items requiring requiring discussion on the regular agenda. Shall we move forward as is, or does anyone have a suggestion on moving any items forward? Oh, Councillor Thompson?
I believe there's a few people in the audience to see the Hallmark lands. Perhaps we can bring that one forward.
Sure, perfect. So there's a motion to move Hallmark Baseball Diamonds forward. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson, all in favor to move this item forward? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so let's move on to item number R2. May I have a mover for this item? Let's put it on the table. Anyone? No. Councillor? Sure. Oh, how about motion to receive then? Just the receive portion. Okay. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim? Okay. Any discussion around this item? I'm sure there's a little discussion. This report is to be received only, but is there any discussion? Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the question I had, I was taken aback at the simplicity of the recommendations. I mean, this is not a typical fleet item where we replace a truck or we fix it for X amount. Or an alternative. This was something that was discussed, I believe, 11 council meetings. And that's not even including the purchase of the Hallmark lands back in 2014, 2015. So I'll just ask the obvious questions first. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Downey. It states in the report that there are some challenges that's causing the estimate to go up by almost $1 million. One was geotechnical analysis revealed that more fill was required. There were drainage issues because the easement is in the northeast section of the land. And additional site servicing in the form of electrical power needing to be delivered at the front of the property. So I know that you're a seasoned veteran. You've created a lot of parks and recreational facilities, and so I'm just wondering why something to the ignorant public like myself, who are not adept at these types of analysis, how we were so overestimated, or original estimate was so under budgeted.
Mr. Downey, you want to take a kick at that?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to perhaps walk you through a little bit about why we are where we are today. The estimate was put in 2017 for the 2018 capital budget, and we had estimated the project to be $3 million. Since that time, many factors have come to light since the conception of that budget, and I'd like to walk you through a few of those things. The first thing is when we were preparing the budget in 2017, back in the time, we did not include contingency or non-refundable taxes within the cost estimates. And we found that that was a significant cost or cost overrun with regards to this project. In fact, it was over $400,000, and we've identified that within the report. We did make consideration for soils. We did make consideration for drainage within the original allocation, because we knew that there was going to be some challenges to the site. However, those two areas, soil and drainage, were greater than we had realized when we got into the design. We found that, in fact, the original design that was presented to us was even higher. And we went back and told the consultant that they needed to do something about the amount of soil that was being removed from the site, and we needed to limit the amount of soil that was going to be moved on the site. And because we had allocated about $275,000 in our original estimate for those works. At the end of the day, with the tender coming back, we've estimated about $443,000 has been identified for soil. So we're about $168,000 over budget, or 5.6% above the $3 million. Drainage, we also identified as an issue, and we had allocated funds for the drainage. However, once again, the site was a bit of a challenge. We needed to contain as much water on this site as possible, and with that, we had to create some drainage ditches and some storm areas in order to accommodate the storm water that was going to be released from the site. We have an obligation to make sure that no more water comes off this site now than there would be after it's developed. And we'd allocated $165,000 in our original estimate for that, and the drainage came in at about $243,000 or $78,000. 2.6% greater than we had originally estimated in the $3 million. So those two areas were a challenge. Additional to that, this project took a long time coming to market. As I said, we prepared the budget in 2017 for a 2018 capital budget. We eventually got out to tender, but during that period of time, the construction price index, of course, has pressure on that budget. And we had identified somewhere in the vicinity of about $190,000 of pressure from the simply with the construction price index against the budget. Additional to that, in meeting with the sports group themselves, they asked for some storage areas within the building, which we had not, within the facility, which we had not identified, as well as a shade structure, and that added pressure. Approximately $30,000 to the overall budget. Not significant, but still an additional cost. Additional to that, an unknown when we did the capital budget were the consulting fees. And the consulting fees were approximately $130,000 allocated to this particular project. When you add all of those numbers up together, we're close to $1 million with regards to over our original estimate. So many factors played into the overrun. However, this was a unique site. It has some constraints that we needed to address. With regards to the servicing of the site, we had anticipated that we were going to have to bring water in. We anticipated we were going to have to bring electrical in. Some of those costs are higher than we anticipated, but not significantly higher than we had anticipated. The major factors in the overrun were contingency, the non-refundable taxes, the additional cost for soil, the additional cost for drainage, the addition of the storage area, and the consulting fees.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Downey. And I don't refute any of the the reasons you gave for the over budget status, but when you deal with municipal projects, there's not one project that's really an easy project, and that's why we have staff, and that's why we call many of you professionals and experts, subject matter experts. Just earlier this year, I'm not sure if it was February or March, staff said that our hope is still to have shovel to the ground on one of my emails. And then it came to the sports field consultant, Monteith Brown. We did a RFP on that. That went out May 3rd. That closed May 23rd. And given the struggles the last 3 years with all residents involved in multiple sports, in particular soccer and baseball, there were a lot of people impacted. I remember Councillor Paul Perry said we've discussed this ad nauseum. We went from a 1-to-1 vote, one baseball diamond, one multi sport field, and then staff report came in between meetings. That caused tremendous upheaval, to say the least, last year, if I remember. I know our current mayor was dissatisfied with that process, with that report coming in between meetings. I know Councillor Humphreys, who was here, she talked about the quality, about the work in the future would hopefully be better than the process that was taking place last year. So given all the challenges, missteps, or whatever you want to call it, I guess through you, Madam Chair, to Ms. McDougall, Monteith Brown, they've had since June 3rd to, first I heard that they were going to be completed October, November, then sometime before the end of the year. Now it's second week of January. Unless they are university students that are going to be cramming all their report in 2 weeks, I would imagine that given that 4 months or so have gone by, that they would have something on the plate that they could maybe give us a nugget to kind of appease some of our stakeholders, because right now this report gives us no alternatives. I would imagine they've collected their data, they've done their analysis, they're just finalizing their summaries based on my experience with consultants. They're probably at that stage now. So why couldn't staff go to them and state, listen, we have an important report here. It's a sensitive topic that residents have been waiting for a long time. Why couldn't you go back to them and say, can you give us a few nuggets in terms of, from your analysis, are there some properties within our town boundaries that we can reclimate and turn into baseball diamonds or any other sports field? Was that ever an option, or was that spoken to with the consultants?
Mr. Downey? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. McDougall, apologies.
Through you, Madam Chair. With regards to the Hallmark report and coming forward as it is, certainly timing didn't align as well as we had hoped. With regards to recommendations from the summary of the report or draft from the consultants, yes, it's taken a few months, maybe an extra month longer than we had anticipated, but they also did a significant amount of research, spoke with a number of our sports groups as well as the school boards, as well as investigated other properties that we may have had some interest in, but at the same time, their recommendations, when I've contacted them and saying that this report was coming forward, they do have a brief summary, which I shared with council as it relates to the lands that we have available to us that town currently own are Hallmark lands. Those are the only ones that we have available to us that we currently have in our possession that could house baseball diamonds. When I spoke with them with regards to its use or rectangle versus ball, again, rectangle fields, as they will report out, I'm sure in their study, the summary will say we can partner with school boards for rectangle fields. So land mass for rectangle, soccer, lacrosse, that kind of sport is something we can do with the school boards. Ball diamonds won't fit within the school bounds with the lands they have. Therefore, we're a bit limited as far as where ball diamonds can go. Hallmark lands happens to be lands that the town currently has in their possession. Are there other lands that maybe can be considered? It requires an acquisition. It requires consideration of council and deliberation, not lands that I'm familiar with that are imminent in being able to make a decision, and certainly not without the cost of the acquisition of those lands. We're here, the Hallmark lands are lands we currently own, and it is lands that we know based on the designs will fit to ball diamonds. The study recommendations, although it's preliminary, I know recommend 2 ball diamonds on Hallmark lands. Just based on a conversation I had with him. I haven't been able to vet the entire report because it has just landed in my hands. The timing, again, coinciding with the report coming forward from the Capitol, unfortunately didn't quite align. However, still, I know that the report will communicate Hallmark lands as the best option for 2 ball diamonds.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Ms. Madam Humphries, or Madam Chair. You can see, though, why some members of council are upset, and many stakeholders and residents as well. We certainly feel like we're brides, left at the whatever you call it, the where you get married, altar.
The altar.
I feel like I planned a wedding for $20,000, and all of a sudden the wedding planner tells me, well, it's going to cost you $28,000, and that's the only alternative. And it's when you have your hopes up to get married, and the cost is going to be that much more expensive. It makes you not feel very good. I'd like to put an amendment to defer this report until after the consultant report comes out, given that it's going to be 5-6 weeks from now. I'd like to put that amendment out there.
Mr. Clerk, may I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gilliland? Okay, we'll put the amendment on the table. We'll have discussion on that to defer until the consultant report is ready. Yes, for the outdoor fields. Can we? Perfect. All right. Any comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland.
Just real quick, and Councillor Kim, I think, pretty much shed a light on, I think, what a lot of us were thinking. And as far as this amendment, I was going to suggest the same thing. And just in light of timing, I don't know how you feel, Councillor Kim, if we were to say defer to staff until Jan 28th council. So at least if we did have a clear vision of what the strat plan said for sport, it would kind of go in line with the guaranteed pricing, which I believe, Mr. Downey, through you, Madam Chair, is the beginning of February.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, in conversations with Councillor Gilliland today, the procurement division has extended the price until February 9th, 2020, at which point there may be another extension. However, that is never a guarantee. So they are willing to hold their prices until February 9th, 2020.
Great, thank you.
So just in light of that, not really having any certainty where, I stand with my decision making, I feel like I would like to see the strat plan on that before making a decision. And because it is coming to council on the 14th, I believe is it the 14th? 14th. And if we do put the this item here for council on the 28th, it kind of goes in line with that timeline. I don't know if Councillor Kim, you'd be open to that suggestion. Defer to January 28th council meeting for us to make a decision. The 14th.
Mr. Clerk, if you can help us with that.
Through you, Madam Chair, so right now the report is after the outdoor field strategy is brought forward. The GC meeting in January is January 14th. Council is the 28th, and then the next GC will be the week after in February.
So, sorry, Councillor Gilliland, you'd like to put a date on this when this should come back to us by January 20th?
The January 28th council meeting,
Councillor Kim, are you okay with that? Or is that
just
impossible?
so we could at least be in line with the guaranteed pricing. If that is the direction we want to go, we can always say no at that point and then defer. But I wouldn't want to miss that boat if that's where we're going to end up.
Is that okay if we keep that date? As they want, I'd like to add that January 28th.
Mr. Downey, through you, Madam Chair, if I may, would it impact the development or the shovel to the ground if we were to defer later than January 28th, or?
Sorry, Councillor Yolande, I don't think we can put a date on it of the 28th just yet because we're just deferring it to a future meeting after the outdoor field strategy is brought forward. So after that. So that's the date that is coming to us, right? On the
Right, so I'm deferring
So-
to the 28th, which is past the 14th.
Right, see, the council meeting will confirm the items of the 14th. So we won't, it has to come through a GC, right? So we can, so it's either the 14th or, right? You know, we were reconciling, so there's a GC
Yeah.
and then there's council. So I think we almost have to make it the first week of February, the first
So,
GC.
through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Clerk, so are you saying that if it went straight to council, that we could not make a different decision or a decision at that time and defer to staff or do any kind of decision we want? Help me understand.
Yeah, through you, I absolutely have asked the clerk to help me with that, with this one, but I think with something like this, I'd like it, personally, I'd like a GC to talk and think about it and then decide, but Mr. Clerk, if you can, is it possible to come right to a council meeting?
Through you, Councillor Humphreys, it's certainly possible to do that. Council could motion that tonight and confirm it next week. What currently I was just mentioning to the chair is that the next opportunity to bring forward the outdoor field strategy would be the January 14th GC, which still could be discussed on January 28th. So if this report is to be brought after that, the earliest opportunity would be the first GC in February.
So through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Downey, is this going to affect the shovel to the ground to the project if that's somewhere we decide we're going to move forward?
Yeah, so, Mr. Downey?
Through you, Madam Chair, we would prefer if a decision was made on the 28th of January. And the reason for that is, even though we do have agreement for February 9th for extension of the price, that isn't guaranteed that there would be a further extension. If there isn't a further extension, the project then becomes dead and we start all over again.
Okay.
Through our tendering process. So
Okay.
we didn't want to necessarily put the tender in jeopardy, which is why we are recommending, once you've had your opportunity to have the discussion with regards to the field use strategy on the 14th of January, you would know more than you know right now. And you could use that knowledge in order to assist you in making a decision on January 28th.
Okay.
That was the thought that we had in our discussion today. It is somewhat unorthodox, but as I said, if we go past the January 28th, I cannot guarantee that they will renew those prices.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That's, would you like to add, Mr. CEO?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll bounce this off the clerk, which I haven't done yet, but one of the possibilities might be to ask that the consultant specifically deal with this report as well, and we present them both on the 14th. And that way you could consider both
That'd be
the
perfect.
sort of totality of the overall strategy, but also sort of have an off-ramp and deal with this at the same time. That would allow them both to come for finalization on the 28th.
That would be perfect through, Mr. Clerk. Is that a possibility? Okay. So, Councillor Gilliland, what if we have it to come on the 14th, both the reports from the consultants for both strategy and
Absolutely. If that's a possibility and we can go that avenue,
And then
I think
decide
it
on
would be
the
good to kind of iron it out at the same time so we're not losing our opportunity either which way.
Okay. So if we can amend the motion, just to add, I'm sorry,
It's
Councillor
Mr.
Kim.
Kim's motion.
we'll leave the motion this way and then maybe we can add. Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, do we still want to have further discussion at this point? But when? Right, when? And Councillor Kim's fine. Good. All right, Councillor Gilliland, is that it for you right now?
For now, yes.
Okay, perfect. So we'll be adding a report for January 14th to this motion on the deferring to having this for, I'll come back on Jan 14th. Before I go to Councillor Gallo, Mr. Downey is looking to speak.
I apologize. Thought you were going to go to the vote.
No, not yet.
If there is any additional information that council would like or committee would like for the Hallmark report, I would like to hear that this evening, and we can ensure that that is put into the January 14th report. So I'd appreciate that opportunity.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, I think we heard that. So perfect. Councillor Gallo.
I guess to the deferral, I mean, I'll support it. I'm just wondering whether we have to wait till January to get the strategic strategy report, field strategy report, or whether we could have it prior to give us more time to analyze it, considering that they'll be both there at the same meeting, or will we have the typical 1 week time frame?
Ms. McDougall, is there a possibility to get that a bit of a head start for us to review the strategy prior to the 14th?
Through Madam Chair, I have the draft that I just got yesterday. I haven't had a chance to go through it yet. Without it being with a report and recommendation of staff, ultimately we can distribute it to council as a draft. I don't have another opportunity between now and January 14th to present it to you at a GC. So it would be a draft consultant's outcome if that's acceptable.
Sure, thank you. Councillor Gallo?
Sure, some additional reading material. I'm sure. I mean, it won't change between then and there'll be a report added to it, I suspect. So that's fine. So I'll support this, but with a really, really big caveat that I'm not sure anything is going to really change, because, as we just heard, there's support for having these baseball diamonds at Hallmark. We're discussing price here. It's never been an issue of whether or not a report will tell us that ball diamonds should go in that space. We're discussing price, an overage, a significant overage of price. So I'm happy to do it. I just don't think it's going to really change much in terms of the decision we have to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Councillor Gallo, sorry. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Speaking to the deferral, if I could direct a question to Mrs. McDougall, and I apologize if you've already answered it earlier, but with regards to the sports field development strategy, when the consultants were engaged and were doing their work, were they working under the premise that the Hallmark lands were empty or that they were already being utilized for baseball? Because in my thought process, I'm thinking, I'm curious how we're going to link these two together, because if the report's already done, they may not have included these lands at all. They may not have included these lands at all because really they were already sort of allocated, and so they were looking at other existing lands. So I'm just curious.
Ms. McDougall?
Through Madam Chair, with the Hallmark lands already in our possession and direction of council to put 2 ball diamonds on that property, as far as their assessment goes based on the demand, that would have been accounted for as far as 2 ball diamonds. If you're asking if they've considered other uses for those lands, ultimately their goal was to see what our pressures are and where they would be. When it came to how to solve that problem, that is where they confirmed that based on size, configuration of diamonds versus rectangular, that Hallmark would be the better place for ball diamonds. And so it just more or less confirmed that the decision of council was reaffirmed based on their assessment, if that's what
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand the value in deferring it to the next meeting until the report comes out, when the report really won't speak to Hallmark other than to say, yeah, this is the only spot for it. So if that's the only information we're going to glean from the report, why are we waiting for the deferral for 4 weeks? Because we just heard that's the only relevant piece of information that's coming forward. So I guess I really want to understand what we are gaining by delaying this till January 14th, when the outdoor field sport strategy essentially just says, that's the only place it can go. So then we're back to, as Councillor Gallo said, a conversation about the price and what happened. And so, I don't know, perhaps Councillor Kim could further expand what he hopes to gain by waiting until this report comes out, given that the only relevant piece of information is that those lands are the only place for baseball.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's great that we're heading in this direction in terms of the conversation we're having, because I think the interpretation of what this report holds seem to be multi-interpretive, because my interpretation was that they would be looking at a field strategy for all sports, including baseball diamonds, and it was not clear to me whether Hallmark lands was confirmed as being an occupied baseball decision, because we haven't made the decision yet. So my assumption was that, given that it wasn't confirmed and staff have been in touch with consultants, I would imagine throughout this whole process, that they confirmed that this is not a done deal. Another reason for my interest in the report is that if there is land that could be reclaimed, renovated so that it can accommodate soccer pitches, then that's great. Then we've made the decision that baseball is the only type of field that can, or sport that can fit in the Hallmark lands. But if there are no other areas for soccer diamonds, then I'd be open to the fact that maybe the soccer club and the soccer community, we go to that model or scenario. So, but if it's clear that the consultants again say that we could partner with schools, we can partner here, there are recreational land currently that's being underutilized, and we can convert that into 2 adult-sized soccer pitches, then that confirms to me that, hey, maybe we do continue on with the baseball diamonds. But if we don't have anywhere to put soccer pitches as well, then that leaves the Hallmark lands with other options. So was my perspective. So through you, Madam Chair, to Ms. McDougall, I know that you haven't had time to go through the whole report, but will the report tell us whether there's other areas that we can utilize for soccer pitches and other field sports?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Madam Chair. Through the skimming of the report, again, I just glanced at it to try to get at least a comfort of the recommendation for Hallmark. But in doing so, I know, having sat in on the conversations with the 2 school boards, the meetings that they had, in both cases, partnerships, they're welcome to it. We are looking at rectangle fields. The school boards have the space for rectangle. They don't have the space for ball diamonds. So as far as accommodation of other soccer opportunities, other rectangular opportunities that serve multiple sports, school boards are one of our best options. And there are plenty of them that can house not only the 11v11, but also the smaller fields as well. So those are some pieces. As far as repurposing of lands, repurposing of diamonds or spaces, there is not a lot of what we have available that could be repurposed into a larger ball diamond configuration. The only places might be the small T-balls that may be underutilized, but they're not large enough to host or house a ball diamond. So it keeps reverting back to lands that can fit ball diamonds. And in support of what Council's recommendation was previously to have 2 softball constructed on Hallmark, this again confirms that that is the best option for ball diamonds, is to utilize Hallmark in that way.
There's no reason to defer.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Downey, and this is along the lines of whether to defer or not. I posed the question to you on email as to whether the cost estimate would still be the same if we were to build the soccer pitches as per suggested last year. Would the cost still be the same?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Madam Chair, the cost doesn't dramatically change regardless of whether you put soccer pitches or ball diamonds on the property.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. For me, I have to think about all stakeholders, including soccer, rugby, all those sports, and perhaps deferring it will give those stakeholders some thought, some time to think about. It seems from what I'm hearing is that soccer pitches and other field sports are going to be in partnership with other stakeholders. It's not going to be its standalone thing where they can host soccer tournaments as it was alluded to last year. So I'm not sure if they're going to be happy with that type of recommendation that might be on the report. So I'm still open to deferring it if it means that other stakeholders will have some opportunity to pause and consider. For me personally, given that the Hallmark lands is the only land that would fit 2 baseball diamonds, and we're a shortage of baseball diamonds, whether it costs an extra $250 or costs an extra $945, I'd still be in favor of going ahead as planned, over budget, as painstaking as that is, with that. So I'm still open to deferring it, and go from there.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Kim. Mayor Marakis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking to the deferral, I just don't see what we're going to get out of deferring it at this point. Hearing some of the conversations around the table, hearing from staff, hearing what the initial comments are coming out of that field strategy report that Ms. McDougall is just pulling out just by glancing at it. I don't see how it's going to change the conversation that the report in front of us is that we're actually supposed to be having, and that's the cost of it. A 30% increase to the budget, and I think preferably I rather us make that decision tonight. Let's just get it done with, make a decision. I think we owe it to the residents, we owe it to the stakeholders, we owe it to the organizations to make that decision tonight. And so while normally I would probably say, yeah, you know what, we could defer it and let's have that field strategy. But like I said, from all the comments that I'm hearing, I don't see how it's going to change any of our perspectives as far as what we will make a decision on as far as from a budget perspective. So that's why I would be against the deferral tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gilliland.
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm hearing a lot about the comments around the room, and there's some really good points. Are we going to get something out of it? Are we not? And that's the question. And I'm hearing quick glances, conversations, and I find that we are talking about the plan that none of us have had a chance to actually look at. And to go on just a quick glance or just a general conversation and not really know what the report's going to say, what these the professional consultants are going to recommend. I feel if it's not going to affect the bottom line, if it's not going to affect the February 9th funding, it's not going to affect the shovel to the ground, why not wait to see what the strat plan says? I agree with Councillor Kim in the sense that I kind of thought that there was more of a SWOT analysis where we're going to identify our strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, in the sense that, maybe Matchell Park's not the best use for small soccer fields, maybe in diamonds. Maybe this is where diamonds should go. I don't know. I don't know what this report is supposed to bring back. And I would rather have a fulsome read of what this report says and what it directs. And if it comes down to it at the end where, yeah, you know what, the Hallmark diamonds, that's the way to go, then we can have this conversation. And if we're going to be revisiting this on the 14th, it gives us time to move forward without delay and make a conscious decision of whether or not we want to go forward with this increase, because it's a rather large increase in a budget. And I would feel more comfortable knowing that if I had this opportunity to read this report and then make the decision, it makes me feel good going forward that I've read everything that I need to read. I get all the information that I can have to make a sound decision. And if it's not going to affect the shovel to the ground, I don't see why we can't wait to the 14th. So speaking to the deferral, I'm in favor of that.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gallo.
So speaking to the deferral, and just so it's crystal clear on my perspective on this, the only reason I'd be in favor of the deferral is because out of a sheer miracle, something might come out of that document to convince me to spend another 25-30% over the budget, because as it stands right now, and I have a long list of reasons why we should not be moving forward with this, and it should come to no surprise to anyone on this side of the table. So that's the only reason I'm supporting a deferral, that something might come out of that document that we've come up with that tells me, okay, this is the best place to do it. I'll be honest, I'm not hopeful, but I'm willing to give that chance to review that document and have a second look at this.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey or Ms. McDougall, either can answer. You mentioned that you think that regardless of what is put on the fields, the cost would be the same, whether it be soccer or baseball. The last report we got in July of 2018 said that for $4 million, we would build one multi-use field and one baseball diamond. And so are we still of the opinion that the price is still $4 million for those two versus $4 million for two baseball diamonds?
Mr. Downey?
Through Madam Chair, with regards to the estimate, you are correct. We did have an increased cost estimate if we put a multi-purpose soccer field.
That was the
in
1-on-1 versus 2 discussion that went on for a long time.
Correct. But the trick with the multi-purpose was that it was going to be a artificial turf field, and certainly that was going to raise the costs. If I apologize.
That's fine.
If we went back to that, our estimate would go up. I am not looking at a multi-purpose soccer pitch in this particular scenario. The question I was asked, if we went to a soccer pitch as opposed to a multi-purpose field, would the price be dramatically different? No, it wouldn't. If we went to a ball diamond and a multi-purpose field, we've already provided that answer to you, and it's $4 million at this point. However, once again, we would want to revisit that. It would take a regrading of the site again, and there may be some additional challenges with regards to accommodate that. The other concern that we raised with regards to that report, if you refer back to it, was the orientation of the field wasn't to our preference. However, it did fit on the property, just not, in our opinion, the proper orientation. So that was another challenge that we had identified with regards to putting that multi-purpose field on.
Thank you. That's. I mean, we can get into those more details. I just wanted to clarify that comment about what goes on there. The cost would be the same. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any other comments or questions on the deferral? Okay, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor of the deferral? Opposed? Oh, let's try that again. All right, all in favor of the deferral? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So let's go back to the main motion. Oh, it's deferred, so we don't have to go back to the We're good. Okay. Back to R1. Thank you. Thank you, sir, everyone, for that. It's deferred, and I know I wanted to go back to, but it's deferred, so sure. Go ahead. Oh, how about on a new business? Can you hold on a new business? All right, let's go back to item R1, fleet management strategy. Can I have this put on the table? Move the presentation. Oh, Mr. Downey, my apologies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. I'm going to ask Sarah to come up and introduce Roger, and she'll give you a little bit of background with regards to how we got to the presentation today, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask our consultants a question.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight you have before you a report on the fleet management strategy. We're asking for your endorsement of that strategy. Richmond Sustainability Initiatives was retained by Fleet Services to initiate this fleet management strategy on behalf of the town. Roger Smith from Richmond Sustainability and Jana Cervinka are here tonight to make a presentation with regards to that. We've been a few months under Roger and him and his team leading us through the strategy. There's been numerous conversations with all levels of staff, and you'll see what they've prepared for you tonight. So on that, I'd like to invite Roger up to make his presentation.
Should I say 10 minutes? Sorry, just as a reminder, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Yes.
We'll give you a minute warning.
Okay. Sorry. So just a bit about who Richmond Sustainability is. We're a Canadian environmental not-for-profit corporation. We're the parent company of E3 Fleet Standards Program and Fleet Challenge, which is our consulting arm. We have become, over the last 15 years, the leading international provider in Canada, US, and Europe of fleet management support services in the private and public sectors, primarily in the public sector. Since around 2005, we delivered about 150 municipal fleet reviews and audits. Most of our work has been with municipalities. But we've also completed demonstration and research projects, green fleet initiatives, policies, strategies, analyses, and fleet management consulting. Our client list is diverse, but it's mainly in the all three levels of government, plus the private sector as well. A number of, although RSI is not terribly well known by its name, but a lot of our projects have been quite well known. We delivered a $15 million green commercial vehicle project a couple years ago for the Government of Ontario. More recently, the Green Freight Program for the Government of Canada, and numerous other programs. By way of background, as Sarah alluded to, RFP for fleet consulting was issued in the summer of 2019. Our company competed for it, and we were awarded the contract. Over a 4-month period, we completed site visits and consultations with staff. We collected data on the fleet, historical data. We completed very in-depth analyses. We made peer fleet comparisons. We have a database of Canadian municipal fleets, so we have a lot of data on fleets, about 50,000 vehicles that we can make comparisons to. And we prepared detailed reports and a set of recommendations. So to fully address the objectives set out in the RFP, the project encompassed a review of all fleet management practices. We completed a life cycle analysis study for the vehicle fleet to determine the optimal economic replacement cycles. And from that, we developed a long-term capital budget plan that we submitted for approval. We also did a mechanical labor demand study. Do you have enough resources to keep up with the demand of the fleet? And we also looked at the garage in terms of the capacity of the garage and the ability to complete the amount of maintenance or the degree of maintenance required to keep the fleet on the road. We finished the report in November, just a few days ago actually, and it came with about 300 pages, 40 files of data, and 3 reports, highly detailed recommendations, and summarized in the 12 key focal points that were asked for by the town in its RFP. This presentation, in respect for the amount of time I have to present this, I have the 12 recommendations, and I'll briefly touch on each of them and the most salient points of each. But first, I just want to put it in context. The fleet is often overlooked in organizations that we deal with. But it's important to keep in mind that, in particular, municipal fleets are absolutely essential for civic and emergency services when a water main breaks or to maintain roads and infrastructure, snow clearing, water, parks, bylaws. I may be biased, but everything is pinned to the fleet. You can't get the job done without a vehicle. So in that context, the fleet is critical to fulfilling an organization's mission. We also understand that fleet, in terms of pure dollars on the balance sheet, the fleet is usually approximately equal to computer systems and the cost of facilities. It's also in the public eye. People see your vehicles on the road, and it's important that they present the right image and are operated properly in a fiscally responsible way. And we think that the fleet can and should be a source of pride for an organization, particularly today where the Paris Climate Accord and green fleet commitments and carbon reduction are so in the public eye. In terms of fleet management, We think, well, we know it's a complex balancing act. There are a number of metrics that drive the ultimate outcome. Looking at the bullet points here is the cost of capital, how much are you investing in your fleet, utilization, availability or uptime rates, operating expenses, depreciation, inflation, preventive maintenance, fuel consumption, fleet aging, and emissions are intertwining issues. If any one of those metrics changes, all others change with it. So, for example, if you do not invest in your fleet, if you and do not incur cost of capital, well, you'll immediately see the costs of operating expenses will go up, depreciation will go down, utilization will go down, availability will go down. They're all intertwining issues. So the first of the 12 that we completed, these are not necessarily in the order of importance, it's the way they were laid out in the RFP, but we completed a detailed life cycle analysis study. It was driven by historical data for the fleet. Typically, fleets do not have this level of discipline. Often the replacement cycles are made through guesswork, and often they're very informed guesses, but they aren't necessarily backed by data. But we feel that the right way to do it is use historical data, mine data backwards to find out what the optimal replacement cycles are. So we did that exercise, and we determined the optimal life cycles for the town's fleet. In some cases, our calculations varied from the current replacement cycles. In some cases, we are suggesting that vehicles can be retained a couple years longer. In other cases, they can be a little bit younger. But at the end of the day, we think it's very important to reinvest capital in ongoing modernization of the fleet. Deferring capital on vehicles is very short-sighted. The current vehicle and equipment inventory, we looked at the count, the numbers of vehicles in the fleet. We compared it to peer fleets across Canada. We compared the numbers of vehicles to the square kilometers being serviced and the number of constituents. And from that, we calculated that the fleet may be a little heavy on the number of vehicles. From that, we suggest that departments should take a look at their assignments and find out where there may be surpluses. I understand that already some of that has taken place. In the example of a backhoe, there is a backhoe that's being taken out of service because departments have decided to cross-share. And another example, we found a Zamboni that we thought might be superfluous, and that's another one we think should be looked at. But by getting these off the inventory, it could potentially, it will reduce some operating expenses, and if they're underutilized, why keep them in the fleet? Preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance is uber important in a fleet. The prime motivator or the prime indicator of fleet success is uptime. Getting people out to work in their vehicles when they expect to get out to work. We think that's the most important job of fleet management. There are only two ways of achieving that you can either have younger vehicles or you can do more preventive maintenance. There are no exceptions. There are only two ways to do that. So as your fleet ages, you need to ramp up preventive maintenance. And we put detailed recommendations in our report on how to do that. Current fleet use and function, we've reviewed the vehicles, we've looked at the mix of vehicles in the town's fleet, we've mapped it out with other municipalities across Canada. Basically, it's formulaic. You have the right vehicles, the right sized vehicles. It's a typical setting for a municipality. It's not unusual. Again, fleet capital purchases, we think the fleet should, without fail, invest annually to bring the average age of the fleet down and bring its reliability up. Early decommissioning, again, we think there should be a study to determine if there are any surplus vehicles in the fleet. If they are surplus, like that backhoe or that Zamboni, they should be freed up and that capital be reinvested into modernizing the fleet. Spare vehicles, again, fleets in our world, we notice this over and over again. As fleets age, they tend to retain more vehicles in the fleet. And the fleet grows and grows and grows because, well, we call it the just-in-case fleet. So people want to have vehicles just in case something breaks down. And, of course, every vehicle has to be maintained. It has to be licensed, insured, et cetera. And, of course, there's stranded costs for that. So our thing is, bring the fleet size down and you will need to have less fleet vehicles. Greening the fleet, we put together some very specific instructions on how to do that. The next thing, or the next step, is a plan on how to execute the Green Fleet Plan. Mechanic bays are, we think they're at the limit. There is a need potentially to perhaps run a second shift if things increase or if the vehicle fleet increases due to more constituents, whatever. Fleet storage and protection. The vehicles are exposed to the elements right now. They're exposed to UV rays, which damage rubber, tires, and hydraulic hoses. There should be a cover over them. Optionally, the building is a gold LEED standard building. We think it'd be wonderful to put a solar array on there that could power electric vehicles in the future and offset some of your electric costs. Again, data system. Right now, everything that happens in the garage.
How much time do you think you'll need? About another 5 minutes?
1 minute.
Just 1 minute? Oh, how about, we'll say 5 if you need. So 5 minutes, may I have a motion to Councillor Gallo, Councillor Thompson. All in favor? You have 5 more minutes, no worries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, fleet management system. Fleet was using a very complicated and very difficult to work system in the past. It was causing too much time to make work orders that was taking away from the productivities of the mechanics on the floor. It was eventually dropped. Our job was to assess that situation. What our findings were is that everything's in paper now. From paper, you can get no data. There's nothing you can analyze. It's a data system is needed quickly. We understand that some work is going on in that regard right now to get something up and running, but we think that's the top priority. Managing the data is the only way to go. The last of the 12 is budget allocation process. We've reviewed the town's budgets. We think there should be some more granularity in the line items on the budget in order to better manage the various costs and expenses. But also we think a total cost recovery business model would be the ideal arrangement. And that's my presentation.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation. Don't go anywhere. May I have a motion to receive the presentation and move to item R1? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Thompson. Any questions of the delegation this evening? I'm sorry, Councillor Gallo. My apologies.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I'm really glad we conducted this study. I think it'll go a long way to improving how we do business. I'm not going to go through the report, but I just want to pull out one thing and maybe ask some questions that are related. In our report, it says, through modeling and running different scenarios for life cycle analysis, it was found that capital spending and the resultant operating expenses impact vary when the current day baseline period and 3-year capital planning approaches were compared. It was determined that a net operating expense reduction of approximately $48,000 is achievable. So through 1 or 3 of those various scenarios, meaning multiple, I guess, points of contact, as opposed to just doing maintenance on a yearly basis, you extrapolated that at least for business as usual, there was, I think, a $2 million capital investment that needed to be done in order to bring our fleet up to our 8-year replacement criteria. The second scenario was about, I think, 1.3, and there was some analysis done in order to determine which vehicles need replacement. And then the last one was about just over 660,000, a more intense look at the vehicles. So my question is, I guess, that data, because the next paragraph, and it's bolded, important note regarding scenario 3, and I think maybe even some of the others, is that the data that you use, and I'll read it, scenario 3 above, was prepared for demonstration purposes only. So when we say we can gain by replacing either one of those scenarios, because it was very, very close in terms of the savings, 46,000. Is it first of all accurate that the data we use is for demonstration purposes. So can we accurately say that we'd save 48,000 first? And second, you also speak to our, I guess, fleet, I'm not sure what the term is. It's in 2.06, fleet size. You speak to right sizing because we haven't really done that analysis, or at least the comparables that you have to other municipalities. Our usage of our fleet is significantly lower in many cases than what the average is amongst communities. So having said those two things, is the 48,000 accurate if we take into account that we're maybe not even right-sized, and secondly, that the data is used were for demonstration purposes?
Yeah, through Madam Chair. So, okay, in answer to the first question, and they are overlapping questions, and great questions, we prepared the analysis based on real data. There's no guesswork here. We have completed fleet reviews for about 150 municipalities in Canada over the last 15 years, and we've mined all of the data that we've collected through all these fleets. So we have a database which is proprietary. We have 50,000 vehicles from year 1 to 20 in all the different vehicle types, pickups, cars, trucks, everything. So the way our data works is we do the comparison between the additional cost of capital, tying up money in rolling stock, as opposed to a ball diamond or a skating rink. And so rather than putting in rolling stock, what are the costs of using that capital as opposed to the increased costs of your fleet aging? So as your fleet ages, like all of us know with our personal cars, the older they get, the less reliable they are, and the more they cost to operate. So our software calculates what would happen if I aged this vehicle one more year. Would I save money or would I lose money? So we have a lookup table in our database that finds that same vehicle and finds what it costs if it's 1 year older based on Canadian averages. And we mined that data, and what we found that based on the current day life cycles, right now your fleet management team has been using 8 years across the board for replacement cycles. So we explored all that. We found, sorry, I'd have to go into the report to find the exact breakpoints, but we found that some vehicles were being replaced prematurely, where you could extend them a couple, even 3 years. Other vehicles are being replaced, the opposite way. So when we used the current day replacement strategies, the savings were $48,000. It was on the high side, but the thing of it is, they were not necessarily good decisions on a unit-by-unit basis. So what our software does is then goes in and analyzes on a row-by-row basis or a vehicle-by-vehicle basis whether each one makes sense, delivers return on investment. Because some vehicles are used more, some vehicles are used less, some vehicles are in better condition. So the software looks at one by one which one will give payback. So when we say it's for demonstration purposes, we don't have the skills or the knowledge that your team has in the garage of knowing whether these vehicles are in good shape or not. We don't have that expertise. We demonstrated in that exercise to show what we thought would be the likely candidates for replacement. What it needs is a skilled mechanic or technician to give a physical assessment of each unit before the decision is made to replace it. So some vehicles that are in good shape, they haven't been utilized enough, or maybe they've been refurbished, they can be extended another year. So that's the whole point here, is that we'll show which vehicles there's return on investment, but somebody needs to do a physical assessment and then defer them out to the next 3 and 4 and 5 years. So instead of getting a great big spike in year 1, we can balance it out over the next 5 years. And that's what the whole exercise is.
So, I understood that, and thank you. I guess my view of it was we haven't done an analysis on whether we're right-sized. So those numbers might go down in terms of so they could go down in terms of ultimately our vehicles. Some may need to be repurposed in other departments.
Yes.
Some we may have to let go.
Yeah.
And secondly, your analysis, I think we have to get to that point because we're not tracking as you're suggesting we should.
Exactly. So, and I realize it's a two-part question, and to address part two is the first step should be a unit-by-unit review by departments. We don't think that should be done by the fleet folks. It creates a sort of adversarial relationship. It should be done by the department heads, and it should be driven from the top down. So we think that a right-away, immediate review of the assigned units, in particular those that are not being utilized properly, that should take place. That information should feed into the fleet's budget. From there, they would do exactly what we talked about, looking at the life cycle analysis and the long-term planning, and make decisions on which units need to be replaced and which ones can be nixed altogether.
So not having done that, all I'm getting to, I guess, is the accuracy of that 48,000 that
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
basically putting into question, because we haven't done a lot of the work. We'll get there,
Yeah.
and you make great suggestions. I just think right now, I think, to suggest 48,000, there's some things that need to be done prior to, I think, nailing down that kind of
Yeah.
a figure.
Or concurrently even, the urgency is getting vehicles out in the road, that are reliable, and safe. And, I think the two things could happen concurrently. The budget could be developed, then have department, top-level department folks vet what's proposed for replacement. And, we're as far as the operating costs or operating budget reductions of 48,000, there's no guesswork in there. This is all based on data, so it's a pretty sound assessment. It's as sound assessment as you can get. So investing in capital after the cost of capital, there's a $48,000 operating budget possibility. But in terms of vehicle counts, they should be looked at.
Okay, I won't argue, but that's fair. The rest of my questions are to the report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Along the similar lines, so on that page 29 of your report, it does say that based on current day replacement practices, it was determined that 32 units are currently either due or past due for replacement. The net cost to replace all those is $2 million. If all 32 were replaced, then the savings is $46,000 from an operating expense perspective. That's just one recommendation within the report. So if you look at it from a totality of all 12 recommendations, were you able to identify what the capital investment we would need to do to implement those recommendations over a 10-year period? I want to know what sort of the total cost is to go forward with your report and implement those recommendations that you're talking about over a 10-year period. What is the cost?
Over
from a
10-year
capital
period?
perspective.
Well, the study didn't go that far, but we've gone out 5 years. We try not to go past 5 years.
Sure, 5 years then.
Yeah. In 5 years, the total dollars, sorry, I don't have the number on the top of my head, but the $2 million we think is excessive. We think it needs to come down to about $1.5 million. If you go through the vetting exercise that we were just talking about. And $1.5 million will deliver something like $46,000 or $46,000 a year in operating expenses. That's in year one. Looking at the timeline, if that was spent, I think just from memory, it goes from 1.5 or 1.3 down to about 400,000, down to about 375, something like that. It's in the 3s and 4s for the next 4 years, but that needs to be balanced. That some of those ones that are due now need to be pushed back to other years.
And I guess that covers replacement vehicles, but it doesn't necessarily address all recommendations within the report. For example, when you're talking about the replacement of vehicles, does it take into consideration the greening of the fleet and some of those initiatives as well? Are we talking about going to hybrid vehicles? Those take more costs. So what I'm trying to get at, and we'll engage this with the staff, is that we have a 10-year asset management plan. We've set aside money. I want to understand what is going to be the impact to the organization to implement all these recommendations from a 5 or a 10-year period, and are we putting enough money away? Because to be honest with you, our report says there's no financial implication based on this. Down the road, it says we may have some, so I'm trying to flesh out what the financial implication is of this strategy.
Yeah, well, it's cost neutral. There are no costs. There's no additional costs.
From a capital perspective, there is.
Well, the capital, yes, but
yes,
you have to spend capital. I mean,
But that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, it's a capital budget. Yeah, we think it's $1.5 million in the first year to play catch up, and could possibly be less than that if some of the vehicles were if there's some downsizing or redistribution within the fleet. But from there, it would dip down to the 3s and 4s. Again, there could be some deferrals that would help balance it out a little better. So we're thinking that capital investment of $1.5 million in the first year. Again, going through that vetting exercise to determine which ones really need to be replaced and balance it out. It's...
Thank you. And I'll take it more up with staff with the report, but just to be clarified, those replacement vehicles, they're the same as the ones currently, or are you proposing them to be green?
We did a 1-for-1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take into account that recommendation within the
No,
report?
we did a like for like, but we used the improved fuel economy of newer vehicles. So some of these vehicles are 15 years old. So
from an operating perspective, I get it, but from a capital, obviously, there's more cost for a green fleet than a regular fleet.
Yeah, but the other thing is utilization is really, really low, like 8,000 or 10,000 kilometers a year is so low that the fuel really doesn't have a big impact on the the overall financials. But as the fleet size comes down, utilization will go up. So it's like I said, all of those metrics are all intertwining. So as utilization goes up, costs go up with it. But it's all intertwining issues.
Thank you.
But the first step is getting the average age down. And
listen, I think the report is great. I appreciate all the information. I'm just trying to get a handle on the cost. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for the report. It was very informative. I thought it caught 4 things I look for in these types of reports is 1, improving efficiencies, reducing costs, increasing the use of technology, and all culminating in increasing service levels. One thing that I didn't see in the report, I'm not sure if it's because the human capital is not a variable, but we just finished implementing an IT strat plan for our town, and it's a significant project with a lot of variables, and human resources and allocation of personnel was one of the prime variables, and inputs as well as outputs that we had to consider. So I don't think this is all that dissimilar from an IT strat plan because, excuse me, excuse me. This incorporates similar variables. And so I missed out on the human component of implementing this strategy. We talked about 2 applications citywide. The other one was Maxima, which we have, but we haven't really, we've only scratched the surface on that application. And these applications and technology is only as good as those who are inputting them and those who are buying in. So my question to you is, have you considered the human component, and is that a noteworthy variable to consider this or to make this a successful implementation or not?
Okay, human component, yes, from the fleet perspective, from the resources needed to keep the fleet on the road and achieve a certain level of uptime. We know the maintenance ratio that's required to get that. We have statistics on that. We know how much money needs to be spent on preventive maintenance in order to get maximum uptime rate. That was the limit of the scope of this project. As far as headcount, balancing vehicles or FTEs relative to vehicle count, way out of scope for this project. It's just, it was one of our recommendations where we think that by the indicators that we had to work with, fleet size looks like it's a little excessive. But that's based on the average or median point for all Canadian municipalities. So that's everywhere from Toronto to Richmond, BC, to you name it. So when you get into a smaller data set, there are specific services that have to be filled, water, parks, roads, but every one of those things takes a person that manages that and a vehicle. So when you get down to the smaller fleet sizes, it goes out of relationship. So we have no way of assessing that. That's way out of our skill set. So a labor balancing exercise would be good. I think it's probably a good idea for department heads to look at their count and say, are our vehicles matched to our head count?
Thank you. I'm surprised that the human capital wasn't considered, because when it comes to productivity, efficiency, the human variable is a very large productivity component or an expense or cost component. You know, whether these efficiencies will equate to, do we need more mechanics, fewer mechanics? You know, those are the things that I was considering when I was looking at this report, because those, you know, those are some of the areas where you could be more productive or save. You know, I think just from hearing a couple of the previous council members, you probably got the idea that we're very performance and metrics oriented. And so I guess I'll ask you this. Is there any way, because you did touch on earlier that we're talking about cost neutral or revenue neutral, is there any way of knowing, based on the information we have over the previous 10 years, like in the investment industry, for example, if you have a new portfolio, we can back test it based on the historical data and all the variables that were in play the last 10 years. So knowing the vehicles that we had over the last 10 years, the cost, is there any way to back test your suggestions and say, you know, we would have saved X amount? Because those are the things I think that my council members are looking for.
Yeah, we certainly don't without data, and unfortunately, Aurora doesn't have data. So, you know, with data we could, sure, yeah, that'd be a really interesting exercise, looking back to see what could have, you know, could have happened.
Sure.
But certainly without data, it's not possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kim. Are there any questions? Oh, Councillor Gallo.
Just thank you. Just to follow up on Councillor Thompson's capital expenditure question. Outside of the vehicles, two of the recommendations. One, the fleet storage and protection. So there's a capital expenditure to construct a weather protective enclosure at a minimum. That's one of the recommendations, as well as mechanics bay and available equipment. There's a recommendation for the possibility of an additional vehicle lift or outsourcing during peak occurrences. Have we looked at costs for either of those?
We did put some costs in there. We got some preliminary costing, very informally. The additional lift was suggested actually by the mechanics, and they are a little bit frustrated with the bay space they have to work with. They don't feel they have enough room to work. So these lifts that we're talking about are portable. So they can, with one more, the trouble is if you use one of these lifts and you disable the vehicle, well, suddenly the vehicle's out of commission, the bay is out of commission, and the lift is out of commission. So basically it's a showstopper. They have, I think, 2 or 3 lifts right now. 2 of them, only one of them is capable of lifting up a heavy-duty vehicle. So if tonight, if there's a snowstorm and a snowplow truck gets disabled and it's on that lift and they can't get parts for it, that bay is tied up, everything's tied up for days. So with another lift, they could just wheel it into another bay. It's a nice open workspace. Even in the summertime, you can put it up outside and put the thing up in the air. So it's better utilization of space, the space that's available right now. We also found that for right now, the maintenance records are paper-based, so we have no way of evaluating whether they're doing enough maintenance or not. There's no way of knowing that. So once the data system's in place, what we're recommending is PM or preventive maintenance intervals that are kind of industry standard. And with that level of spending on labor to do the preventive maintenance inspections, we know that a certain level of uptime will come from that. But to do that, when we mapped it out, we found that the number of bays that are available are right on the threshold. You know, it's a wonderful, beautiful garage, but it would be maxed out if the maintenance that we think needs to be done was being done. So, you know, that would put a big roadblock if a bay was tied up like I was describing. So if they had another lift, they could use another bay to do preventive maintenance and keep the flow of work going. Failing that, you know, maybe a Saturday shift or an evening shift, maybe not any more head count, but, you know, certainly that's maybe an option, or outsourcing, selective outsourcing. I'm not a big advocate of outsourcing. Usually it costs more money to police the outsources. And, but at the same time, it might be an option.
Thank you.
Great.
And I think I remember the costing for both of those items. I'll go through it.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Mr. Smith? Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, for your presentation. Can I have a motion to receive the presentation and refer to item R1? We already have that. Just receive the presentation then, right? Just a vote. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. On to the report, R1. Hey, can I have someone move the item? Councillor Gilliland? Anyone else? Councillor Thompson? Comments, question on the report? Councillor Thompson?
First off, I think that the report and the recommendations are good. It's a good direction for us to go. Just, I've brought this up before with regards to, master plans, strategic plans, and so forth. We have a tendency in our reports to say financial implications, none. And knowing that, later individual requests will come forward and there are costs associated with it, but yet we don't give an overarching price tag to it. And the problem being is we say, well, there's no financial implication, but then the reports come to us in future and they say, well, council's adopted this strategy, so we're moving forward with these recommendations based on council's direction, and here's the cost. But the costs were never really shared at the get-go. And I get it that there are moving parts, but as I've said before, I think there should be some indication of what the cost is from even a range. I mean, we've heard that it's $2 million for the replacement of 32 vehicles, but over a 5 or 10 year, lifespan, what is the cost of us adopting these strategies? Surely we can put some sort of price tag, because it's a piece of information that I think that is important to me. I think is important to residents, and I'm sure it's important to other members around the table. And it's been brought before. I appreciated last time when the IT strategic plan was brought forward. At least that had some numbers associated with the financial implications based on human capital as well as capital investment to bring forward some of those changes, and at least it gives some context to these decisions. And so I don't know if it's possible between now and next week, but perhaps through you to our CEO, Mr. Nadarozny, could we not put a generalized sense to what would cost to implement these recommendations over the next 5 to 10 years?
Mr. Nadarowski, if you can help us with that.
Through Mr. Mayor, through Madam Chair, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
That's what he's over there.
Our intent was to bring a series of reports forward, though, using this as the background, where we would identify those costs of various options before council is related to fleet. So I'm not sure how much detail I can provide between now and next Tuesday towards that end, but that was our intent.
Even
We
if it's a
broke it
wide
down.
range. I guess I'd like to know that in adopting this program, these recommendations, are we committing 5 million, 10 million, 50 million? I don't know. There's a lot of great recommendations in there, but what does that impact? Because at the end of the day, we have a 10-year capital plan. We invest cash to capital every year. There is an impact. There's a budgetary cost to doing this. If all of a sudden these strategies mean we have to significantly increase our cash to capital requests to meet these goals and objectives, then I think that's relevant to know. Otherwise, it's great to say, but then when the price tag comes forward, we may or may not choose to do it. And anyways, that's how I see.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you, and it was also one of my concerns in terms of when we have recommendations like this that link to a report that has many items to it, and naturally financial implications that, by supporting this, do I support all of the recommendations? Well, that's what it's telling me, that the recommendations from the Richmond Sustainability Initiatives Fleet Management Strategy be endorsed. So we're endorsing those 12 items, and there are dollars linked to them. Some we may agree with, some we may not. I'll leave that one for now. In terms of the report, I'm happy again that we did this because it clearly identifies some areas for improvement. Some of my frustrations, that in the report, it's on page, I guess, 9 of 72, background, and it says fleet management review was conducted in 2005, and over the years, a few recommendations have been implemented. However, most of the suggestion improvements in the report were not brought forward for deliberation with the financial considerations that may be necessary for implementation. So it speaks to what we just said. Great report, great ideas, fell through the cracks. We didn't do much with it, and we're now in the position that we're in, probably because of that. In terms of the report, it highlights some, and I'm not going to go through them all because there are many, that we clearly are not necessarily following a process that is efficient. A lot of handwritten stuff. Our maintenance schedules are not what they should be. The report goes on and on in terms of identifying those current issues. And again, I'm happy we're doing this because we're on the right track to fix a lot of them. I hesitate to guess what we have spent because we're not as efficient as we could be. And I'll draw your attention to last year's budget when I had suggested we go through this process before we approve any more vehicles. And I'm maybe patting myself on the back a little bit, but I'm happy we did this because I think it was a valid analysis. There are a lot of items that I highlighted throughout the report. I won't go through them because I'm sure you read them and they're there. And the point of this is to get on the right track to being as efficient as we possibly can. So I'm fully willing to move forward on the recommendations. The question about costing, I guess, will come forward at a different time. Two areas that are kind of red flag for me. One, the consultant just raised it in terms of, are we really at our maximum with a 2-year-old JOC $30 million building in terms of space? If we are, I just, if you can't shake your head at that, I don't know what. One of the recommendations also, and I don't know if we can go back to the contractor, was some issues with drainage on concrete that flows inside the building as opposed to out. And that's one of the safety issues that the consultant had identified. I don't know if that's something that the contractor should be looking at if it is an issue. And also, I think in terms of human capital, there was a suggestion, although I don't see it in the 12, but the possibility of a 5th mechanic. I think that should be also explored if we're going to increase the regime of maintenance. We certainly need the capital, the human capital, to be able to accomplish that. So some more work, I think, is needed in terms of that. But I would like, at some point, to better understand, if we implement all of this, is the size of the building an issue? And I think that's something we need to explore, particularly if we are going to move towards creating a structure to house our fleet. And there's some capital expenditures there. As much as I don't know if I want to go down this path to expand a 2-year-old building, but to have that understanding, if we are at capacity or if it's just not enough analysis was done.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. We took note of that, and we can have that information back. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for this report. I am so happy to see this fleet study that was done. I'm really happy to see there's some green initiatives, the 1-for-1. I do think this did come at a very good timing for us, and I was with Councillor Gallo pausing on the fleet last budget, primarily for the same reasons. And maybe it's a good thing it happened because we were able to identify some some areas of weakness and some areas of strength and areas of improvement. And doing so, it's allowed us to reevaluate some of the green initiatives as well. And I think on a long-term standpoint, that's good for the community. And I do like the fact that we are taking a life cycle analysis and really trying to understand where we're strong on that, where we're weak in that. And I was really interested in hearing how some of the underutilized vehicles actually cost us money to be holding on to versus some that are being used a lot. So I had learned quite a bit from this, and I'm glad we have this report in front of us, and I'm happy to endorse this, and I'm looking forward to the pieces of the project to come forward for us to approve financially, because we don't know what those numbers look like, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Gill, and Councillor Kim.
I was, like all reports, I was hoping for something that would be pretty exhaustive at the strategic level as well as at a tactical level. But based on what Mr. Nadrasny said and what I'm hearing is that, this report is a roadmap. It's an umbrella plan that staff over the course of the next few years are going to bring about separate reports with costing, the efficiency and the cost savings. When I look at the 12 recommendations, they certainly are. I don't see anything wrong with the recommendations, other than what's already been pointed out, that there's no costing or financial benefits to them. We can't just say when we're dealing with taxpayers' money that, that sounds like a great idea. I certainly think that the cost savings would be there and the service levels would be there. But I just view this as the roadmap. As a roadmap goes, it's pretty good. And as the next, as we do the 10-year asset management plan going forward, we are going to have budgets presented to us for various projects, and they're all going to be rolling up to this strategy. Some are independent of one another, and some are definitely correlated and are in conjunction with one another. And those are the things that I hope that staff reports will link together and tie up, and be able to cost us those numbers. So I think from that perspective, I'd be endorsing the strategy. We'll go from there.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Any other comments or questions on R1? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the report? All in favor, if I can see some hands. Okay, perfect. Opposed? Motion carries. Great, thank you. We'll try the next one. We're just looking at the time for break. All right, let's move on to item R3, I believe. All right. Do we have enough? Are we gonna have enough time to start this one? It's a presentation and a report. Yep. I think we take break now. Let's take, yes. So let's take, is it 10 minutes? So we take 10 minutes. We'll be back at just 2 minutes after 9. Thanks. We got to do it. It's a big meeting. That's okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that. All right. Hi, everyone. I guess we're back. It's 1, 2, 4, 5. We're good. Okay. All right, council, shall we move item, I think there's some individuals in the audience here for item 4, right, if I believe? So if we move, maybe can I have a motion to move item R4 forward? CMCR update. If council is agreeable to that, may I have a motion to move that forward? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Thompson, all in favor? Move forward. Okay, may I have a motion to put for item R4 to put on the table? Motion to receive, yes. Oh, actually, motion to receive and while we discuss it. Someone's, okay, Councillor Thompson seconding it, okay. All right, okay, Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. I just, the reason why I just wanted to receive, and I had some chats with the director and Mr. Yarulo as well, in terms of my thinking behind this. Basically, we're not the decision-making body, as I mentioned to the delegate, first off. Secondly, two big things are happening, and we don't know the results of them. The municipal review that the region is doing, as well as our own official plan review, which is the next item on the agenda. So those two items we have not gone through. And I have no idea what the impact is to the town of Aurora should we proceed with sending at least comments to the region, particularly the ones that we say we are in support of and they're had originally not been in support of. And we may very well stick to that opinion once we've done our official plan review and gone through our analysis of what we want in our town. We haven't done that. I have no idea what the impact to the town of Aurora is in terms of employment ratio to residential. I have no idea what that is. I understand that there is the town, our staff doesn't know the impact of any of that because we have no data from the region. The process, in my view, is strange that a landowner could go to the region, ask for a conversion, and they make the ultimate decision while they're giving us the opportunity tonight to make some comments should we choose. What are you basing your comments on? We have no data. We have no idea what the impact of any of these conversions, one way or the other, would how it would affect us. I don't like the process, and I'd be much happier if we had gone through our official plan review and then we have these questions posed to us and we can point to something. We can take these into consideration when we're looking at our official plan. It's not a secret that I'm a big support of increased density beside public transportation. I think that's a good thing. And some of these things to me make sense. But so what? I'm sitting here just thinking and understanding the planning process. It's not based on any significant analysis. And while I realize the region can go ahead anyway, regardless of if we approve or not, if we have a motion to receive or if we approve the recommendations. I think, in fact, I would even add another resolution saying, you know, we're not in a position to make comments because we don't have any information. And maybe I'll ask the director if you can confirm what I've been saying in terms of what type of data has been given to us from the region in order for us to make any significant decisions.
Thank Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Mr. Waters, do you have any comments?
For sure, through you, Madam Chair. The councillor is correct that we have not received any of the analysis from the region at this point in time. Like the landowners, we were informed in the fall about their phase 1 decisions on the conversions. I'd like to point out that in accordance with the growth plan and provincial policy, it's the regions or the upper tier municipalities that have jurisdiction over making decisions on the conversions. Once they issue a recommendation to that effect to support a conversion, it can be then implemented at the local municipal level. It's important to go to page 3 of 29, which at the bottom there's 5 criteria that is intended to be used for evaluating employment conversions. They include both locational characteristics as well as supply and demand analysis. And to this point, we have not received any of that information from the region.
Great, thank you, Mr. Waters.
So I'll leave the the motion on the floor and hear what my colleagues say. I'm happy to provide input once we've gone through our process and better understand land use through our own official plan process.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gallo. Any other further comments or questions on this item? Mayor Marakis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, if no information was received from the region, I'm just curious, how was your recommendation formed?
Through you, Madam Chair. We looked at it from a planning perspective and took into account the sort of planned function of where these conversions are located, and based our support or recommendation within the report on that analysis.
Because when I read through it, you're supporting the conversions, whereas the region was not supportive of these conversions. So obviously, when you're looking at it, are you looking at it from regional planning matters, or are you looking at it from a town of Aurora planning perspective?
Through you, Madam Chair, you're quite correct, Mr. Mayor. We are looking at it from a local level, looking at it from a grassroots perspective.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, the province is the one that's initiated this MCR process, correct? I see you nodding your head. Yes. Thank you. And as this is a one-time that they put forward?
Through you.
Outside of the regular process.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll answer it. Your question, sweet Mr. Mayor. The MCR process is the opportunity for conversions to be assessed. I believe through the current revisions to the growth plan, there's an opportunity to assess employment conversions outside of an MCR where it has not taken place. But at this point, we have an MCR process, and we are participating in that process with the region.
And thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, how long before our OP is updated and finalized?
Through you, Madam Chair, the province requires municipal official plans to be done, or to be, I guess, adopted by council from a conformity perspective by July 1st of 2022. Yeah, and to add to that, the region needs to be done about a year earlier than that.
So we're looking at 2021. So through you, Madam Chair, when will this MCR process be completed?
Through you, Madam Chair, the most up-to-date information we have from the region is that they'll be done by the end of 2021, with initial recommendations on the MCR coming in the first quarter of next year, 2020.
Thank you. So is it fair to say that the MCR process, through you, Madam Chair, would be completed before we complete our OP and have an understanding of how we're going to update our official plan?
Through you, Madam Chair. I've asked that question at the region, and I just got a response the other day stating that the conversions that are approved at regional council are intended to conform to the 2031 plan.
Wow.
And once that decision is made, they can move forward at the local level.
2031. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's all for right now.
Thank you. All right, any other comments or questions on this item? This put on the floor is just to receive for information. Okay, not seeing anything further. All in favor? Oh, wait a second, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair, thank you. And I know it's my second time, so I'm going to waste it on asking a couple of questions that I forgot to ask through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, if my understanding is, in sitting at the regional table, is that if we don't make a recommendation, the region will probably go forward with their recommendation, which is not to allow for these conversions. So that's in essence probably what will happen unless we make a recommendation to say that we would be supportive of those conversions.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Madam Chair, the region has requested the council's position on the conversions that are within the town's limits. They will take that decision into consideration as they move forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? I just have a question. Is this a time-sensitive issue? Mr. Waters?
Madam Chair, the region has requested council's position before the end of the year as they move forward to issue a report for the first quarter of next year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, would, I'm going to ask you to assume for the region, but would they take council's lack of position as a no? Or could we phrase it in a sense that, as Councillor Gallo had indicated, really it's just a case of a better understanding of what, and we want to sort of defer our opinion on it?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Madam Chair. I think my impression is that the region would like to know what council thinks of the conversions. And even though the criteria needs to be evaluated, I think they will take council's position into consideration when making the final decision in next year.
Sometimes I think of other planning applications, and we ask the region to weigh in with respect to our official plan, all that stuff, and they seem to be able to sidestep it and say, we have no comments, we just leave it to the town to decide. Could we not do something similar?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Madam Chair, the system's not set up that way, unfortunately. The region will be making a decision on these conversions.
Sure.
And I think, from my perspective, it's important for the town to weigh in and provide that input.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to, if that's okay, if Mr. Mayor, from his perspective on regional council, I'd like to say a few words, if that's okay? You okay, Councillor? Yeah? Okay. All right, any other comments, Councillor Thompson?
No, I said
You
that's
done?
fine. Councillor
Okay,
Gillen.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm not really quite sure where the council stands on this. I think it would be good for us to have a wholesome discussion about what we feel the conversion would be. It is within 500 meters of the GO station. It does go with some of the intensification that we so desire with affordable housing, and I think it's the per person ratio 70-20 that we so need. And I look at that and I feel like it does fit the bill as far as the need, as far as more residential condos, apartments, whatever it is, by school, transit, shopping, and we have a lack of that. And this property certainly does demonstrate some of the need that we've been talking about. And for me not to have a comment at all, I don't think is right. And I would hope that council fellow members could also weigh in on maybe some comments here tonight, and maybe some of these comments can conform to some sort of direction to staff or comments taken to staff to take to the region on this matter. So I'm hoping my council members will chime in. But I do think that this is something worth looking at for the future growth of our town, because we do need affordable housing. We need more housing, and that's really the best spot right around the GO station within that 500 meters. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Waters, that really is the objective, increasing intensification within that 500 meters, correct?
Through you, Madam Chairman, for this site, yes, it presents an opportunity to add to the supply for intensification.
And with that, I'd like to hear about more of a wholesome conversation with my colleagues if that's something we can at least entertain.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Mr. Clerk, is it possible for us to have this week to have further discussions with staff and other, parties that may help us formulate a decision for next week? Because it is GC, we have another week to update this if we all feel inclined. Okay, so that's an opportunity for council to think about during the week, that if we're going to lose the opportunity to input, if we just say received, is that what we want to present to regional council? So that's something we could think about over the week and maybe do some research and further discussions. Right? Unless anyone has any other questions or comments or would like to change the motion on the table. All right, seeing none, all in favor? Okay, motion carries. Thanks. All right, back to item R3. Mr. Waters, if you wouldn't mind moving forward with the presentation, if you can introduce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, I'd like to have Andrea Salese, our senior planner in our department, and who's also the project manager for the OP review, provide GC with a short presentation on the official plan review in terms of identifying some background work we've done to date, some of the highlights we would like to show you, and talk about process, the focus areas we identified to date, and also some milestones.
Thank you. Welcome, Andrea.
Good evening.
I think you have 10 minutes,
Yes.
and when you hear the beep, you have 1 minute.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public that made it out today. As Mr. Waters introduced me, my name is Andrea Salese. I'm a senior planner in the planning department, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you a bit about the official plan review process and some of the community consultation we've undertaken to date. Some of you may know already what the answer is to this question, but some may be asking, why do we need to update the official plan at this point in time? Not only is updating an official plan good practice, but it is a legislative requirement set out in the Planning Act. The Planning Act requires municipalities to update their official plan every 5 to 10 years, depending on whether or not there was a comprehensive undertaking the last time you updated the official plan, to ensure that the policies conform with provincial and regional plans and policies, and also to ensure that they continue to reflect the growing and changing needs of the community. Section 16 of the Planning Act sets out the minimum requirements of an official plan, so there's a reason why you have goals, objectives, and policies, and a vision statement. They are to manage and direct physical change and the effects that this physical change has on the social, economic, built, and natural environment of a municipality. The Act also directs that official plans include policies related to climate change, affordable housing, enabling policies for inclusionary zoning and additional residential units, formerly known as second suites, public consultation requirements, and policies related to major transit station areas. The 2020 official plan review will result in an updated official plan that will provide guidance for the municipality until 2041. The current official plan provides guidance in terms of a time horizon to 2031. Some of you may have been here when we last updated the official plan in 2010, and that's when council adopted the current version. It has been subject to a number of amendments in the past decade since we did that review. Through this municipal comprehensive review, the town will bring the official plan into conformity with the various provincial plans and policies that have been updated since that time, including the growth plan, the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan, and the provincial policy statement, which is now in its second iteration. As we just discussed, York Region is undertaking a municipal comprehensive review to bring their official plan into conformity with the provincial plans and documents. As Mr. Waters alluded to, we anticipate regional council adoption of the regional official plan amendment, or the ROPA, in 2021. The region's MCR will provide policy direction to local municipalities like Aurora on matters such as local intensification targets, major transit station area targets, employment area conversions, and employment density targets, as well as natural heritage areas, whether there are boundary changes or additions thereto. And we have about a year to update our official plan from the date of York Region's approval of their ROPA. The town's current version of the official plan is premised on a vision and 12 guiding principles, which you see on the screen there. I won't read them aloud. Through this official plan review, we will be revisiting the vision, the principles, to ensure that they are current and reflect the changing needs of the town, and we will be doing that with the community and council. You will have seen in the report these diagrams, which were created by Corporate Communications. What they do is they outline the draft work program that staff has been working on internally and consulting York Region and the various agencies on, and members of the community. They are founded on the official plan's guiding principle. On the right, you'll see the phasing, the proposed phasing for the official plan review. So it would consist of 5 phases. The background review and analysis, which is where we are today. A growth analysis, both looking at residential and employment growth in the town. The 3rd phase would look at complete, vibrant and healthy communities and facilitating that through our policies. Looking at implementing direction related to infrastructure and movement. And finally, synthesis and implementation, which would be the official plan amendment. A staff report early in 2020 will provide further information on how public consultation has both informed the work program and refined it. What you also see on this slide is a number of focus areas of study. So similar to the region's approach, we have grouped the various strategies to the phasing. What you don't see is phase 1 on that circular diagram on the left, but you can see how the various strategies fit within the diagram on the right, which is the phasing. We have not been idle here at the town. We've undertaken a number of master plans and studies, which we will be referring to and hopefully implementing in terms of the recommendations. And they will inform the final official plan amendment. As part of the official plan, we will also be doing some technical studies around natural heritage. We've started to brand the study, and we've done this in concert with Corporate Communications and their graphics team. This is just something that we've put together. We've gone out to the community, so the tagline being Building Aurora Together. We had an internal survey on that, and that one won. We've gone out and we've been asking members of the community what their plan is, so a little play on words there. We've also, with Corporate Communications, developed a public engagement strategy because we envision the official plan review being premised on a robust and innovative approach to public engagement, using in-person and online forums to engage and capture a broad spectrum of perspectives. One of those approaches is planner pop-up events. You may have seen myself or my colleagues out at various events through the town, some photos of those events. Planner pop-ups are literally what they sound like. We pop up in local destinations. They're non-statutory informal meet and greet style public consultation events. We host them in accessible locations like Town Park, the library, and using this format, we have already engaged over 300 members of the community, which given the preliminary stages of the official plan review, I would say that's quite the success, and it has been positively received. We've also hosted World Town Planning Day here at the town with some local students and told them a bit about the official plan review. The public engagement strategy envisions 2 steering committees that will provide focused input at various stages of the study process. The steering committees will be a resource on key issues and policy recommendations. We've already formed the technical steering committee, and that sort of a library square approach where we have functional leads from the various departments here at the town. staff, key staff from York Region, the conservation authorities, and then as we go through the process, agencies as required. The Community Steering Committee, we have not formed yet, although we are collating a list of potential volunteers. Will consist of representatives from council, so about 3 members. Resident groups, Aurora Youth, who we're doing a bit of a competition for Aurora Youth that have already signed up to be members of the Community Steering Committee, and key stakeholders. All members, however, of council will be engaged throughout the process through regular planning update reports and discussion papers that would be thematic based on the various phase. Staff will be bringing forward a report early in 2020 that will describe the public consultation strategy in more detail. So where do we go from here? Staff continue to receive input through online surveys on the work program. We are in the process of procuring a public engagement consultant for the study, and in early 2020, we are going to host a public open house to receive even more input from the public. That would be a statutory meeting where we send out formal notice. And in Q2, we hope to issue a request for proposals for a study consultant to undertake any technical analysis for the official plan review.
Great. Thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. Thank you very much, Andrew. I really appreciate the presentation. It was excellent. And are there any questions, comments from... Oh, may I have a motion to receive the presentation? Apologies. Mayor Marakis, Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions of Andrea? No. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I was a resident for the first OP that we did, I believe, 2009. I think we did it, 6. I was a resident back then. John, wasn't I a resident then? I was a resident, yeah. No, I was a resident when I was with you. Sorry, it was fun. I loved it. So anyway, that was great. Thank you very much. So if we move on to item 4. If we can have, I'm so sorry. Item R3, the report. Apologies, guys. May I have this moved? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions? All right. Oh, Councillor Gallo.
Just in terms of the, it was quickly on the screen, the community group representation where council would sit on. Just maybe a few words in terms of what we foresee that group doing. As mentioned, I was part of the last official plan review, and it was quite significant, and we had quite a bit of input. And I just want to make sure that that we have, if not the same level, similar level of input to the official plan.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Madam Chair, I wasn't around for that process, so I'm not familiar with sort of how in depth the committee got involved, but it's not a technical committee. I want to make that quite clear. That's the staff at the staff level and dealing with the agencies, but it's to bring forward information at key milestones of the process to get your input prior to us making as staff decisions to bring forward to GC.
Councillor Gallo?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's agendas from way back then to get a sense of what we did. I remember it being pretty intense in terms of our commitment and what we went through directly with the consultant and how we gauged the plan. I'm hopeful that it's at a similar level.
Well, thank you, Councillor Gallo. Just from my being on it as a resident, it was a really great experience. We were so engaged, and it was pretty incredible to see residents' feedback directly in the documentation. So it just makes you really feel like you're truly part of building the OP as a resident. And I really enjoyed that immensely back in, I think it was 2006. Yeah, so it was very well. Mayor Marakis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I might go on a bit of a tangent here, but we've heard time and time again that our official plan is probably the most important document that a town or a city could have. It's unfortunate that the provincial government might not feel the same way, because they've made changes that ultimately take our decision powers, our authority on how we move forward and how we uphold our official plan out of our hands with the reversal of some of the rules on LPAT. And I'm not going to go too much in that, because I know I'd be steering off onto what we are actually discussing. One thing stuck out for me on the presentation, and that was promoting responsible growth. We talk about it a lot. And to me, I think that's what this OP is about. It's about looking at how we can responsibly grow, not overdevelop our town, not stop development, but have that responsible growth. And I hope through this process that we maintain our height restrictions, because I think that's important to our town. And I've heard it time and time again that it's important to the residents of this community. I've heard it at the region, where I've asked our commissioner at the region that if we are mandated to grow to a certain level through the province and through the region, can we maintain our height restriction yet still meet those targets? And the answer was yes. And so I'm hoping that through this process that we stick to those height restrictions, because to me, that is what's going to keep Aurora. And so I'm looking forward to working through this process and ensure that Aurora stays Aurora.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. It's just a quick comment that I was hoping to get a copy of the report, because the presentation wasn't the same as what we were presented in our report.
Perfect.
And there's some pretty good points in there that I just would like to have.
Mr. Waters, we can get a copy of that? Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Gilliland, for bringing that forward. Any other comments? I'm bad. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. R5. Might have someone put this on the table. Mover. It's a water meter replacement program contract. Councillor Thompson, Mayor Marakis, any comments or questions? Councillor Gallo?
Just a question in terms of, it's a 5-year contract, and just a clarification of the rationale between or for a 5-year contract. Through, I guess, to Mr. I'm not sure who.
Is it Mr. Waters? Oh, I'm so sorry. Wainwright, Ms. Wainwright Vince Kessel.
Through you, Madam Chair, we're trying to align the contract with the contract for the new water meters, and then when both contracts come due at that time, we'll bring both of them together, because this is also part of our strategy to be able to have the same type of water meters across the town, and then look at ways we can do better customer service for water billings in the future as well.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
So our other contracts will be up in 5 years? Is that what I'm?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, do you know that? Or Mr. Downey?
Through you, Madam Chair, we are aligning it with the report that came forward a couple of months ago for the new water meters, and I believe that was 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. We've been dealing with WAMCO, looking back at the reports for almost 5 years now. Millions of dollars we've single sourced them to purchase these. And one of the drivers, if you look back at the early reports in 2016 and 2017, was all about the automation and the installation of a radio receiving tower to kind of improve efficiencies, remove away from the manually of the reading and getting these data on a continual basis. One of the reports said that the goal was to get it up and running in 2019. Where do we stand with the automation of it?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Madam Chair, we do have a conditionally approved capital project that we will be looking at. Mr. Downey and I are going to be working together on this as well, as we look at it not just from a billing perspective, but an operational perspective. But part of this is by going ahead with the census meters, they have more precision in the meter reads than the older meters do. So part of the customer service we want to be able to improve upon when we do have those continual reads is being able to detect those slower leaks. So we don't have people who have like leaking toilets, which we sometimes have, and then they get a bill 3 months later and it's a significant amount over 3 months, but maybe we can detect that sooner and have those hourly reads and see those lower flows through the new meters. And we are going to be looking at that and looking to bring something forward next year.
I appreciate it. So if council approves that conditional report, when do you think that that automation would take place? Is there some timelines around the recording of or the receiving of that data from these census meters?
Through Madam Chair, I'd have to come back to you with the timing. I haven't had a chance to look at that as of yet.
Thanks. I just, looking back at all the old reports, it was always part of the rationale of why we were getting these meters, why we were going with WAMCO. That was always the long-term plan. As part of the cost justification, if you look at the older reports. And so I just, perhaps as we go forward, we can get a sense of it, because it is, even though we see these reports every year and the rationale is it's single source because, they're the only ones that do this, we have, spent millions of dollars over the course of the last X number of years dealing with this. And the rationale was to get to that point. So I'd like to see us making progress on that.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Just to see a little bit of an ROI, right? Councillor Gallo.
Yeah, sorry, just on that point, I wasn't clear on the timing of when that's going to be coming back. I would agree. It's been quite some time that we've been sole sourcing this. But what was the timing for you, Madam Chair?
I believe Ms. Castle will be coming back to us with that, but if you'd like to share a little further.
Through you, Madam Chair, we plan on coming forward with that report next year. I'm hoping in the first half of next year to have that strategy in place on how we move forward with getting those radio reads and improving the billing process overall.
But through you, Madam Chair, we currently must have quite a bit of these meters with the readers in people's homes currently. We must have quite a few of them.
Do we know how many we have currently deployed?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it's somewhere between 40 to 50% of the meters have been changed over. Some of the older meters we can look at putting the radio read devices on. We just won't be able to detect those low flows until the meters are replaced out with the newer sensors meters, so it won't detect some of those like leaking toilet, those lower flows on an hourly basis, but it will give us better information.
So through you, the ones that we are installed, are we currently reading them through this new technology?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we are not, because we don't have the antenna system or any radio read system in place to be able to do that on a regular basis. Right now, the process for reading the meters is we do actually have a contract with a person who goes out around town collecting the reads.
And will the report that's coming to us identify a timeline on when things will be operational?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we will include that in the report.
Okay. And just a side note, I did a little bit of research on WAMCO, and oddly enough, the importer, the main distributor for these products are up the street, about 500 meters up the street. Unfortunately, we can't buy from them. WAMCO is out of Barrie, and we buy through them, so it's unfortunate. I don't think there's a price difference. It just would have been nice to have dealt with someone right in our community. Unfortunately, they're a major distributor, and they distribute it to a retailer, and we get it from them.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Councillor Gallo. It's a real shame. They're right here, our neighbors. Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. All right, let's move on to item number R6, road infrastructure repairs. May I have someone put the report on? Councillor Gilliland, a second. Councillor Thompson, comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Downey, Where does, our capital asset management plan, that we initiated, I guess, a couple of years ago, we try to maintain our assets and have predictable repair and replacement over a 10-year horizon. And so in this report, it states that the road team looked at the report and said that there were 2 high priority items that required prompt attention, and classified these as emergency repair. So when I look at asset management and trying to manage our resources so that there are no emergencies, so how does this item gel into the capital management plan from this one-off item? Are these things that will happen from time to time, or is this something that was missed or could be improved upon?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Madam Chair, thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about this. Quick answer to your question is no, it's not in the asset management plan, but it will be. It is a process that we have inherited through the reorganization of the responsibilities within the corporation. We are concerned that there is not sufficient attention paid to some of the infrastructure that has been identified. This is a coordinated effort between development engineering and ourselves with regards to not only ongoing maintenance but repair and replacement of items before they get to an emergency state. When we received the report that was initiated by development engineering and handed to us, we identified excuse me, some work that was certainly high priority, and we had identified it as an emergency. We've learned a little bit through this process not to call it an emergency because there's a lot of work that needs to take place in order to address the repair to these items. So most people think of it as an emergency is going to be done next week. And that's not the case in this particular case. So this is a high priority job. We needed to then engage a consultant, come in and prepare specifications and drawings for us, create cost estimates for the work, and then that would permit us an opportunity to go out to tender. So it's a bit of a lengthy process and not one that we find is necessarily in the best interest of moving forward in a fiscally responsible manner. Certainly in discussions that we've had with not only development engineering but the Treasury Department, we feel that many of these items that are identified in the report should be before council as part of our normal capital project process. And so this is a somewhat unique item, hopefully not to be repeated in the future, but rather go through our normal capital repair and replacement program.
Thank you, Mr. Downey.
I'm sorry, I want to add one more thing, and that is we're also looking at some of the cost implications of that and adjusting any fee or any amounts of money that we're going to need in reserves in order to address these issues.
Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. And so roads, bridges, culverts, these items will be added to the 2021 capital budget and ongoing and part of the capital asset management plan.
Through you, Madam Chair, as we get these reports from development engineering, we are going to then start logging them into the 10-year capital as well as our repair and replacement program. Much of the repair is going to be the responsibility of operations. Some of the replacement, however, will fall back into development engineering, and so we want to make sure that there are sufficient funds in order to do both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo.
Just a quick question through you to Mr. Downey. Do we consider changing the material type, particularly the railings, stainless steel, something that's
Mr. Downey?
longer lasting and not steel that doesn't corrode.
Through you, Madam Chair, thanks for the question. It's one of the reasons that we identified or gave you some idea of what the new look is going to be. Many of the infrastructure we have right now is passed at a state of approval, in that we couldn't do it today with the approvals required. And with that has come some new technology with regards to materials. So we're going to be not only upgrading or bringing it up to a present day standard, but we're going to be using materials that are going to allow us to have these perform for a longer period of time. So both are going to be happening at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Downey.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Any comments or questions further? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number R7, proposed approach to consider backyard swim school as a permitted home occupation use. May I have someone move this forward? Anyone? Mayor Marakis, Councillor Kim, any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Item R8, capital project 81021, additional funding request for capital project engineering design criteria manual. May I have a motion to move this forward? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. R9, draft plan of condominium application, Catardo, 404 Aurora, 95 Eric T. Smith Way. May I have a motion to move this? Mayor Marakis, Councillor Gilliland, any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, R10, Governance Review Ad Hoc Committee Supplement ESR Report. I have someone put this on the table. Councillor Thompson, Mayor Marakis, any comments or questions? Councillor Gallo?
Just a question as why it's an added item.
All right, may I have who can speak? Oh, sorry.
Through you, Madam Chair, with the next council meeting being about 6 or 7 weeks away, the Governance Committee is interested in getting moving on this, and with the quick timelines, maybe not quick timelines, but with the second round of public consultation coming to a close before that council meeting, we just wanted to get this on before the holiday break.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
And just through you, to the clerk as well, we're okay with kind of a bit of a change in terms of process, in terms of direction from a committee and asking for, I guess, maybe some resources to I don't know if we're getting a consultant or what they're doing to achieve their goal.
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Madam Chair, absolutely. We don't anticipate it being significant resources at all. Certainly some of my time, but I'm happy to lend it to this process. And so I don't see it being much more than, if anything, maybe $1,000. But and we'd have it within my budget.
And once the report or whatever it is, it'll come through through you as a report to council.
Mr. Clerk.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to the clerk. Mr. Ron, part of this was presented to the committee last term. I believe we had a consultant who weighed in a little bit just from a broader perspective. Would some of that information that was presented last term be again presented to the committee and perhaps utilized in this report?
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Madam Chair, without question, that's an academic providing that information. I imagine the committee would be very interested in that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Right, seeing no further questions, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. It looks like That was it, our last item. Notice of motion we'll be discussing next week. And if we could start with some new business, may I start to my left, Councillor Gallo? Do you want me to come back? Want me to come back to you? Sure. Next week then. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim, any new business? Mayor Maracus? Councillor Gilliland? Okay, no new business. All right, no closed session items. May I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. Great. Thank you, everyone.